So welcome everybody, here we are for the Retail Futures 360 panel discussion. And we've got a great panel here. I'll leave everybody to introduce themselves and tell everybody what you all do.
Hi, I'm Sam Bain-Mollinson. I work at Shaftesbury. We have 14.5 acres in the West End, which includes Carnaby, Soho, Seven Dials, Chinatown, Fitzrovia. And I'm in charge of the retail strategy, which means looking after 300 odd shops and choosing which retailers we should put into those sites. And one of our tenants is Alice. I'm just going to say that now.
Hi, I'm Marco Odisio, the director of Brands Distribution, that is the worldwide leader in the fashion distribution online of accessories and apparel. So we distribute around 100 brands around the world through 200,000 resellers. And we also give support to brands to get international around the world. So this is pretty much what we do.
Hi, I'm Miff Ryan. I'm Chief Marketing Officer for Westfield UK and Europe. I and a very brilliant team that I work with essentially work with our 700 plus retailers at both Westfield London and Westfield Stratford City to really try and drive physical visitation into a physical environment.
And hi, I'm Alice. I'm founder of We Built This City. As Sam said, I took an idea to Sam and her wonderful team at Carnaby about 3 years ago to revolutionise London souvenirs. So the idea was essentially to bring together the very best artist design goods across gifting and art. Everything very, very London-inspired, completely sort of representing a very contemporary London as opposed to a slightly more outdated and cliched one, and bringing that all together in a retail environment on Carnaby Street. So we've been trading for 3 years. We represent any one time over 250 London artists, designers and makers. And this year, the early part of this year, we launched online. Yeah, I think that's it.
Great, well, thank you. Well, Rob set some great questions for the conversation this evening, so I'll kick off with the first one, which is kind of a mix of looking at where virtual reality and augmented reality, do you think that it can ever really replace bricks and mortar? Is it kind of more of a blended experience? And where does tech and that kind of idea of mixing sort of blended realities in the store fit in with you guys? Let's go round this way.
Yeah, fine. So obviously, I'm going to say it's never going to replace bricks and mortar because I'm coming from a property background. You know, if we got rid of that, then I don't know what Shaftesbury would do, and I don't know what would happen to Carnaby and Soho and all our property. I think that we are seeing it now that it's all about immersive experiences in our locations. So, for example, I was just talking about Fright Night, which is on in Carnaby tonight, which is part of Halloween celebrations. When you leave here, you'll probably run into a few zombies, which are from The Walking Dead tonight, which is amazing. They've been on a photo shoot under the Carnaby Arch earlier. And spider cobwebs that are hanging down Newburgh Street at the moment is all part of our kind of bringing to life an experience for Halloween, which is more than just the shops itself, but it kind of brings the whole area together. We've actually, this year, we've taken a shop ourselves, which we're working with LCF on, and it's at 2 Newburgh Street, so I don't know if any of you have seen it, but do go. It's a lovely florist shop, but it's kind of all things Fright Night as well, which has been lovingly curated. But it's that kind of thing that we're looking at investigating. Technology side of things is a lot harder for us. I think we kind of lead that to our retailers, and a lot of them are doing it and doing it really well. But it's something that Shaftesbury doesn't necessarily do themselves. It might be that we do something in the future, but it would just be quite difficult for us to think about what that would look like at the moment. And I think the retailers are just doing such a good job themselves that in a way, some of the retail concepts that we see, the amount of investment, the money that goes into it, we almost want to let them get on with it because they're so much better at it than us. So yeah, some of my thoughts.
Yeah, I see, for example, also an opportunity here because if you think about shops and chains of store monobrands, before they were limited to sell their items in the region, yeah, in the locations. But now, thank you to the internet, and there is a better opportunity to sell this abroad. So I know, for example, a big chain in Poland is an example called Big Star, for example. They contact us because they have, I don't know, maybe 200 stores in Poland, so they're very huge. But they didn't sell any other pieces out of Poland. So now, because of the internet, and you can partnership with other chains and other online e-commerce, your product and your brand can really be recognized everywhere. Of course, you need a good partner, you need a good strategy. So I can see really, yes, it's a kind of risk. But if you have the right partner, you can really improve your sales and achieve market that you maybe didn't know before. So that's what I think.
Okay. And you, Miss?
So I obviously totally agree with Sam as well, because if physical went, we would have huge amounts of space in both Shepherd's Bush and Stratford City that we would have nothing sitting in them. So physical for me, and certainly for Westfield, is a very core part of how people still spend money and how people still use retail. We have to bear in mind that 80% of all retail sales come from a physical retail store. And over 50% of online sales are in some way influenced by a physical store. I think the changes that you'll see in physical retail will be the types of stores, how stores are actually using that space. And that will be an interesting role that virtual reality and things like augmented reality will play. And we have probably a couple of really good examples with some of our retailers at Westfield who've done it incredibly well. And to Sam's point, we don't always have to do it ourselves because some of our retailers do it as well, if not better, than Westfield could actually do it. And people like Charlotte Tilbury, who use magic mirrors so that women can see 10 different looks on their face before they spend £1,000 on makeup that may look hideous by the time you actually get home. So they're using technology, in a really, really interesting way. And where Westfield is kind of now focusing is how can we also use that technology to create unbelievable experiences that consumers, won't get and can't get through online. And whilst we haven't announced this public, and I can't tell you exactly what it is, but on the 14th of December at Westfield London this year, for anyone who likes Star Wars, I don't know how many people, any Star Wars fans here?
Me.
Any? Yes, thank you, a few of us. Please head to Westfield London because we've done a really incredible experience with Disney using Star Wars, which does use a type of sort of virtual or augmented reality, but that is very much a way that we use that sort of technology to get people into the physical environment.
And you've done some fun things with kind of shopping with the app and checking for sort of what that image is, and you're wearing it. And Snap Fashion was somebody that you partnered with.
Snap Fashion was one we did, yeah, which was great. And we've done things like fashion avatars, and we've done hackathons at both Westfield London and Stratford City. So we've very much tried new things. Some of it has worked brilliantly well, and I think the Snap Fashion one was a really great example of it. We've used technology, and it has failed miserably. I mean, I can't tell you how bad some of our ideas have been. And all I would say is, as long as it doesn't cost you a huge amount of money, it's always good to try these things because you will learn from it, and even if it fails, you will learn from it. And we have certainly sort of improved how we've used those types of digital technologies within our physical environments.
Yes, it's much about the physical experience, isn't it?
It is,
And
totally.
you were saying that about your store, it's real destination, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you think that you might sort of introduce some digital ideas into the store?
Yeah, we were just laughing backstage because obviously the shop's only been going a couple of years, and I'll just be completely honest, self-confessed technophobe myself, so this is quite an interesting panel to be on really, but I think that but I would like to say one thing, which is that my general view on it is this, which is I'm sure that, I see a lot of brands obviously do get it really right on this, but I do also think there's a sort of a sense of we must use technology in some form in retail, just because it's there and it's kind of using tech for tech's sake. And I have sort of read a couple of these, stories about some things that haven't quite worked out, just because it's not actually adding that much more to a retail experience. With us, it's quite an interesting story in that I suppose I was so obsessed with this idea of how can we create this better souvenir. And everyone said to me at first, when I had the idea, oh, you must just go online first because that's what everyone does, and then you can build from there and you can do your pop-ups, etc., etc. But my thing with souvenirs is that they are an emotional purchase. They have to be made in the city where you are. You're having this wonderful time. You're having this emotional reaction. And I think it was always so important for me to start weirdly with bricks and mortar, even before we built an online site, because it just didn't make as much sense. And I think what we're really trying to do is to kind of connect customers with artists and to make sure that when they come into the store, yes, they see something that is resonating with their experience at the time in London, but how much cooler that they can also then be in a store where they're, watching an artist work live, or they're having a portrait done by an artist, or an artist is doing the storefront, and they really then can sort of start this dialogue around sort of, this dialogue between the artist and the customer, and take something even more, away even more than just the purchase itself. So in the future, if I can do that through technology, and if we ever have the budget to do it, I would obviously look into it. But I think for now, it's about looking at the fact that we have this very tangible product and all these wonderful human beings, and it just seems to make most sense still to actually just put those two in the same room and see what happens. And in that, there's something really magical, I think. So not to take, in the future, I'd love some amazing content that told that story as well, and that then somebody could access when they go home, when they leave London, they go home. But for now, it's sort of working on a human level. Yeah, thankfully for me.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that, because I think that technology has to add value, and there are a lot of concepts that I go and see, and you'll just get thrust an iPad in front of you for no reason at all. It doesn't help. Suddenly you're like, well, how do I use this? What am I searching for? And unless there's a member of staff there that's telling you and walking you through it, then it's just completely useless. And you're just thinking, why is this even in this store and what's it adding? Wire Nails, I think, is a really good example, and I also think all the makeup brands do it really well. But Wire Nails, you can actually go in, and because she has, Sharmadean Reed, who owns it, because she has so many different intricate designs that you can put onto your nails, and it's actually gel or shellac or whatever it is, you can actually take in a photo of yourself or your family or whatever you want to do, like a tile even, and just say, right, okay, she loads it onto the computer and then loads it onto your hands, and you can actually see how it works with your skin tone. And how amazing is that before you've even bought it? I mean,
it's very personalised.
Yeah, very personalised. And it's one thing that saves you a lot of time, because shellac or nails, they tend to take 60 minutes or something when you go in. So that's one side of it that I think is really beneficial. And makeup stores tend to do, like with their mirrors, things that add value.
Yeah, I mean, one of the problems about virtual reality is the fact that if you want to stick a headset on, you're immediately taken away from being in the store environment. So I think it's going to have to be kind of quite a blended experience of both that kind of in the store and what's around you, and then what you see. Yeah. So we'll sort of see how that progresses in stores. So the next question was really a kind of a big sort of topic at the moment. So the Internet of Things, how do people feel about that? A lot of people go, well, what is that exactly? And then I think increasingly it's kind of like how sort of AI or artificial intelligence is going to start sort of informing how different devices talk to each other. Sort of where do any of you see that going in retail? Do you think people are kind of increasingly accepting of sharing data if it means it's more kind of convenience?
Well, if you see from the final customer, in one way, it facilitates your life sometimes, because once, for example, if you are used to buy from Zara or from any other brands, then you know that this fits you completely. You go home, next time you order, and now here in London, let's say people expect 1 hour delivery now, thank you to Amazon, or thank you not, I don't know, but it's something that what the people is expecting. It's very challenging now, the logistics system that the company has, and internet facilitate that. From the business point of view, again, I see an amazing opportunity, because now the brands, what they do, they, for example, using marketplaces around the world, can be ASOS, can be some other marketplace, they just connect, and this is thank you to the technology. So they integrate the two systems, the two catalogs, and in real time, every time that there is a customer buying something from one website, is going out from the other one, and so the sales increase. And this, again, I see an amazing opportunity if he's playing in a clever role. That's what I see.
It's really about having those systems in the back end, isn't it? The RFID tags.
Yeah, but now, yeah,
making
the
sure
IT team now really to have someone amazing, intelligent, and clever in the IT team, they make the difference today, I think. And I mean, Amazon probably is one of the best examples on it. Even if I maybe don't share what they do, but. I cannot say that.
I think I'm too old for it. In a way, like I'm a little bit of a technophobe as well, so also a bit interesting to be on this panel. But a girl that I work with, who's in her mid-20s, she's just bought this new light system, which works with the new Sonos Echo. Is it Alexa?
Alexa, yeah.
Yeah, so basically, they're light bulbs that you can, with an app on your phone, but also you can tell Alexa to change the light display in your house. So she's there going, make everything pink or give me a light show. And then at the same time, Alexa, play this tune. And you're just like, what world is this? Like, this is a whole block of flats in Chelsea, and like they're all talking to each other, and they're like, come around mine because I've got the best light system. And you're just like, what? Like, not like my house at all, but it's amazing to think like where this is going to go, because everyone she talks to buys it. You know, and they're not cheap things. They're like £85 on wherever she's buying them from, Argos or something, and Amazon. And then the Sonos, we've just actually put Sonos into Earlham Street, and that was their big launch recently. And them being able to produce suddenly, you know, that same system with a great sound system, so then you are playing music at the same time. And it's all leading to, I think, the latest version of it, you can actually get it to tell you, you know, which outfit to wear. Like, you can try on different outfits and it will say, well, you suit that one better.
Yeah,
Do you think
that's
weird?
Have a camera in the room.
Yeah, it's got a camera
and
in
do
it.
like a 360 kind of.
Yeah,
you go, nah, yes, you know,
yeah.
a bit Tinder-like. But no, I think there's going to be a lot
Freaky.
of voice commerce coming from the Alexas of this world, and I think Google have theirs as well.
Yeah.
But ultimately, they kind of want to know what your choices are. I think they're going to sort of throw up, Alexa, what are the deals today? I mean, do you think sort of that kind of voice commerce is going to come through?
I do think that native language is a big growth area in terms of AI, and it's something that, you know, even companies like Microsoft and Amazon's working on everything, but even Microsoft is starting to do some interesting work on sort of native voice language. And I think consumers will start to use that in a way that, you know, you wouldn't necessarily use Siri, because Siri sort of was a bit weird and it was slightly freaky because it didn't sound like a human and it had no sort of emotional connotations with anything that you said. But if you can start to use AI to create these sort of natural languages and responses, it's more like you're then using technology as another person, sort of slightly scary person, but another person nonetheless. It's interesting though, because I do think we are at somewhat of a tipping point here. And one of the examples we kind of use at Westfield, and we have a very simple equation, which is to get a consumer or to motivate a consumer to do something, the perceived benefits that they get have to outweigh the perceived cost. And unless you can even that up, you will really struggle to get a consumer to do anything. So for us, it's all about data, as I'm sure it is for a lot of people and probably for Shaftesbury as well. And you know, I think it was The Economist who came out recently saying that data is the world's most valuable resource. Globally, consumer data is now the world's most valuable resource. But from a consumer perspective, you know, if someone's asking me to give them my name, address, my telephone number, my date of birth, you know, do I have kids, am I married, then what am I going to get for that? And is that worthy, you know, for me to give my own personal information across? And that, I think, is an equation that people haven't yet got their heads around. And it's all about just collection at this stage, and then using AI and machine learning to, you know, put more granular detail around that data. But there's still this challenge of how you then get a consumer to react to that. And I don't think any of us have really got our heads around that at this stage.
That's a good point. And what about you? Do you think that kind of might lead to more of a personalised journey for your customers?
Yeah,
in store?
I think the thing that I've always been really sort of set on is that everyone we employ in the store, excuse me, is generally a creative or an artist. So I'm only interested really in having people on the team who have an actual passion for the 250 artists that we have in store at any one time. Only because it's a lot of knowledge to hold when you're talking to a customer and they're asking you about, you know, different prints all day long. And people really need to sort of have a genuine interest in that in order to have that genuine conversation. And I think that, and that's been a really, actually, was really pleased to see the other day. I did a classic Google of your own brand. Never do that. Not my own name. And I did notice there were these lovely comments, you know, these 5 stars about, oh, when you go in, they're such a friendly team, et cetera, et cetera. And obviously that's the advantage an independent business can have over a very large one, because you can build that team and you can build that knowledge and even that repeat custom from it. So there are people who come in and know Naomi, for example, who runs the store and, you know, and is essentially her friend now. So I think that in the future, what I was reading the other day is quite an interesting idea, is that, you know, when you go in, if you're going to give your data over, the idea that then that data would somehow end up on the shop floor, so that actually when Naomi starts to have a conversation with you again, she can say, oh, I noticed, you know, from whichever device, excuse me, forgive me, I don't know, but, you know, you're interested in this artist, or or you've just bought a new house, so how about a whole new raft of prints for your walls? I think that kind of like learning, I mean, to me it's creepy, but in the future I can see it happening. And I also think that, you know, we have a lot of people come in store to say, you know, I'm looking for something specific, and they end up showing you photographs of their mantelpieces or their, you know, office walls, and we're sort of trying to do this thing, and that's where it is clunky. And I kind of always think in the future, if there was some way of, you know, giving over that kind of information beforehand, it would be a much smoother transition in store.
Yeah, it's a convenience for the customer.
Yeah,
Isn't it,
and lastly, like on our email address list, you know, you ask someone for their email in a blanket fashion when they transact, and they're just like, no, because I don't want my data with you. But you then tell them, oh, just so you know, we have loads of events in store, and we do, you know, promotions, and there are Meet the Artist events where you can come in, and then you start talking to people about these extras that we offer as a store, and suddenly everyone's just signing up and can't wait for the first newsletter. So I think it's always about, as you say, just really making clear what are people actually going to get for that, and how is it going to, improve their life, I guess.
The value adds for
the value
customers.
add, yes.
Okay, so one of the other things that's been quite disruptive in retail is this sharing economy. So this idea, instead of owning stuff, you kind of just borrow it, or, you know, you've seen Rent the Runway opening their store. Do you think, how are sort of consumers or customers that you have sort of falling in with this idea of the sharing economy, and how do you think that might impact your businesses?
For us, it's really difficult, this one, because we, for instance, as a property company, we've had a real issue. We only ever rent out our flats, and what we found is suddenly all of these flats are being rented out to Airbnb, who they're not being looked after in the way that a normal private tenant would look after them. So from that stance, it's a management issue for us. It's more of a headache. I just think it's going one way, though, that this is going to happen more and more, because we're all running out of space. We're all consuming more. We're all much more worried about what's happening on the environment. I think, you know, the consumers that I talk to now, the younger they get, the more concerned they are with cruelty-free environments and sustainability, and I think that this economy was going that way, but I don't know what that looks like.
And what about you?
And for me, from the internet point of view, there is not much about worry about sharing economy. There is a big space out there in the internet side, and actually, I mean, it's not proper for me to answer to this question, maybe, but from the online point of view, again, the sharing, for us, is a sharing space on the internet side. So out there, you build a relationship between all the different kind of opportunities that you have, and you share, instead of physical spaces, digital spaces. And instead to compete with each other, I can see now that there is the opportunity again to collaborate with all the kind of businesses that can be B2C or B2B, but they integrate each other because they understand that this is the way that it's going to be. And at the same day to cooperate also with the physical stores as well. So it's going to be all one integration together to share this kind of space.
Marketplace idea.
Yeah, ideally what I see in the future is the marketplace, because a lot of businesses online doesn't work anymore. Before, for example, they used to have like flash sales models. They are dying.
Guilt,
Yeah.
they're just not the same.
Before, I mean, in the beginning, I remember Groupon was the big invention. Wow, yeah. Now they are struggling with all the competition. They become voucher. But then now their marketplace is the future because you don't have any risk of stock. You don't buy unless you don't sell something. And the only thing you have to do is really to trust the suppliers you have that they deliver to the final customer. But the marketplace I see now is the future of the online business, and this is what also we are doing, for example. Yeah.
And at Westfield, I mean, if Rent the Runway wanted to come in?
Look, it's certainly having an impact, most definitely. And, you know, the very well-documented millennial consumer who is very much part of that growth. You know, it's all about experiences for them as opposed to owning specifically something. So it is having a very big impact on physical stores. And there's probably two massive shifts we've seen. One, I'll give you an example of that's actually in the US, but I think it's Neiman and Marcus in San Francisco have set up a concession for Rent the Runway within their own department store. So they've actually given over space that they would have given to a previous, you know, concession that would have sold product to a rental brand, because what they're seeing is that, you know, as a 25, 30, 35-year-old consumer, how many people want to spend £600 on a black tie evening dress that you wear probably once a year if you're lucky, and if you hate it after you've bought it, probably only once in your lifetime. So it's not a good sort of use of spend. The other interesting way that retailers are dealing with sort of consumers maybe spending more on rental than on buying is changing the way they're setting up their physical retail space. So as an example, at Westfield London, Lululemon, you know, have a big store, great store, and we all, you know, some of us like exercising, but they've actually given over a pretty big part of their in-store space, and they run yoga classes at 8 o'clock every morning during the week. They're taking out space that had previously been given to, you know, product that would sell, and actually creating an experience, which is now a lot more relevant to that type of consumer. I think the other interesting thing is we did a big piece of research in 2016, and I think it's something like 29% of Londoners would be happy to rent fashion. And it would be equivalent to around about sort of £390 million a year on the rental economy. So it's a big opportunity that I think retailers are now starting to kind of get their heads round, and, you know, landlords like Westfield are actually trying to help retailers get there, and we're actually doing something at Westfield London in the run-up to Christmas, and working with a celebrated stylist, Melanie Rickey, and putting in the first ever rental retail store. So consumers can actually go in and they can rent, you know, a dress, a pair of shoes, should you wish to, a handbag in the kind of run-up to Christmas. So rather than buying, you know, your work party dress or your university party dress, you just go and rent it. So it is, again, you know, a new and interesting trend that is very much shifting the way physical retail has been set up previously.
Yeah, it's a big shift, isn't it? And what about you in store? Do you think maybe kind of artworks to borrow or something like that?
I really don't want anyone to rent any of our stuff. I just want them to buy it, only because that's normally the way, we can keep the artists paid. But I mean, there are things out there that there are art platforms where I know you can rent artwork. It's normally at a higher end of artwork than we sell. It's our sort of artwork is more of a souvenir. I suppose the sharing economy for me is that people come in and buy other people gifts, so they are sharing the love. But I would say that in the future, though, that there's this kind of interesting thing about retail and obviously sharing spaces within retail spaces. So I know someone who's just about to go and do a pop-up on Redchurch, and she's just launching a beauty care brand. She can't in any way normally afford like a normal pop-up at this point just by herself, so she's sharing it with kind of 6 or 7 others. We actually do a similar thing. So in evenings at the store, we give over space to artists to come in. We will normally just say, you can run that in a sort of a dry hire kind of way. So we're not really earning revenue out of it, but it's obviously a great way for them to come in, have an amazing spot on Carnaby Street, get in front of the right audiences, bring people in for us. You know, everyone kind of benefits. So I think we're looking at how we work with artists in that sense, because there are lots of, it always differs in terms of how it works best for people. And normally on a workshop, we wouldn't make a lot of money. So it's better just to say to somebody, just you have it, you run it, we won't, then don't have to staff it. And it kind of works like that. So I think in the future, if we were to ever we built the city, hint, hint to Sam, to a massive store on Cardiff Street over like 2 or 3 floors, which would be the dream. We would bring in, I've got this kind of dream of what else can you bring in other than just the kind of classic souvenir and art. So can you bring in fashion from great London creatives? Can you bring in food and beverage and kind of create this absolute sort of multi-sensory, experience for tourists to come in and have this, kind of, I guess, 360 experience of what London is through the eyes of creatives and makers. So in that sense, also, that would be probably a sharing kind of way of doing that.
Sharing for everybody here.
I think as well, in the economy at the moment, I mean, we all know about, or you might not know, but business rates has gone up. It's a really big issue in property in central London. We as a landlord, we need to take some responsibility for that and keeping our area as cool and creative as possible. And we recently had the owner of Jack Wills in, and he said, look, I'm paying rent every day, and it's 24 hours a day, and I'm only opening the shop in these hours, these trading hours. When else what else rather can I put into that store to make it work harder? And I think we, as a landlord, I'm sure Westfield exactly the same, is we have the responsibility to make these retailers as successful as they can possibly be. And Jack Wills is a good example. They've just put in a bar called the Mucky Pheasant, and they've got an alcohol licence in their store on Kingley Street, which fits with all the pubs on Kingley Street.
So it's about extending those hours.
Yeah,
to
and I think it's, and going back to Alison's point about finding, how she'd add value with other kind of uses in her store, it has to feel really authentic. And I think the Lululemon thing, it always feels authentic because, you can go in there, have juice bar, a healthy breakfast bowl, do a yoga class. In the Sweaty Betty store on Carnaby Street, you can then have a blow dry bar upstairs, and so you can have the whole complete package. And I think that we should be more flexible about allowing those uses to happen within those stores. And sometimes it's not easy within the government because they like to put a particular use onto it's planning policy. But luckily, I think it's going the way that we can find ways around that to be more flexible and support the retailers as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, that's also is a very interesting point because it's also important to actually for you that you have the physical spaces to compete with the digital worlds. Yeah. Because if you think about today, for example, a part of all the brands that we already know that they are on the market, but also let's consider the new brands coming up. Someone that want to do their own collection, their own business. Then I have 2 options today. Before was I have to open my store, yeah? So I was forced to face my rent, to deal with that and everything. Now actually the digital market gives you another option because I can open my website that sometimes is even more profitable compared to the shops. And if you open, you can tell me both, if I open a store in London, I mean I have to face a big rent if I want to be in a good street. How do you call the taxes, the business rates? This is almost the same of the rent, and it's already gone, plus the employee, plus the storage, you need a lot of things. So if you calculate your budget, it's going to be really, really a lot of money that you need before you start your business. And that's why it's important for you both to really talk with the landlord or find a way to do this. Because in the other side, they have the option to do the website, and if they are very good online, they can make a lot of money without having these risks. Yeah. So that's, I think.
Okay, and just to sort of finish off, I think this is my favourite question, actually. What are the implications of a cashless shopping society? Cash is so last year. I mean, I think that sort of this idea about paying with your mobile or even just kind of just checking in and then walking out is becoming kind of the idea of frictionless shopping is going to be the future. Would you allow that? Do you think people should be just checking into the store and paying on their mobiles?
I don't personally consider myself a huge technophobe, but the thought of paying for something with my mobile phone just does my head in. I have loaded 2 credit cards onto my mobile phone, and I don't think I've actually ever used them for anything, but I'm pretty sure my husband loaded one of them on there, so that's probably why I don't use it. I think a cashless society is One that has been very well supported, particularly by supermarkets, is an interesting one. Pretty much any supermarket you go into now, half of the tills, if not more, are automatic checkout. So you just you kind of do it yourself, and you don't need cash. And that is very good for the retailer because it takes less space. You don't have the people that you need to employ, and it is good for consumers because it does create a much more seamless and, in some cases, faster and more efficient checkout process. For someone like a Westfield, where we think the opportunity is for a more cashless society is through the collection of data. Because obviously, if you're not using cash, then you're using credit card or debit cards, then you're actually getting very important first-hand data about customers. And that really, for us, is where we think the value is, but not just for us. And this is where there will probably need to be quite a seismic shift within the retail industry, in that, I'm sure Sam would say a similar thing. Historically, retailers, landlords, consumers have all been very separate, and landlords have treated on occasions retailers disrespectfully, and there's always been a little bit of a pinch point between those two, and everyone has kept their own information and all of their activities very separate from each other. I think what you will tend to find moving forward now is a lot more sharing of data between retailers, between landlords, for the benefit of the customer at the end of the day, and to be able to provide the customer an experience that they wouldn't get within an online experience, because the data that's being used is being treated respectfully between both parties, but also being enhanced through either the retailer or the landlord data to create a much better experience for consumers. So that really is where we're starting to think around what does a cashless society mean for someone like a Westfield.
And is that the same for you, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it is just all about ease of use, and I know from having tried to use my phone on the Oyster card reader that it doesn't really work that well. You know how you have your, you can just swipe through like a Londoner, you just sail through those gates into the tube, and then it was like, no, stop, there's suddenly like a jam behind me. So if it's not going to add to my experience, I'm not going to do it. I do know that, I think in Japan they've had denim stores where you can literally just go in, pick up a pair of jeans, and then as you walk out, somehow it's magically deducted it from, I don't know how that works.
Well, there's Farfetch have sort of created this store of the future concept where you just kind of check in.
Yeah, you literally just pick up your product and walk out through the door, and there's no need for staff at all. And I know that, I don't know if that store's still there, but it was a small shop with a small selection of jeans, but it got a lot of press because it wasn't staffed, and you didn't need to have a staff member on there, and that's astonishing to me, really, particularly with jeans, because you definitely need to try those on.
Yeah, it's about that balance, isn't
Well,
it?
Amazon opened a shop in the US, was last year, I guess, that you walk in and you walk out without paying anything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for them, it looks working, so they're opening more.
It's about trust, isn't it? And having maybe some sort of loyalty system where, I don't know, the whole Minority Report thing of however many years ago that was. Hello.
But it's also about, I think, a change of habits, because it's about also where you live. Now we are living in the UK, specifically in London, and of course you are in the fast progress here.
Yeah.
And yes, this is the direction we go. But then if you look at other markets, for example, we have a business, again, a marketplace in Romania, and they used to have cash and delivery still today. Is a part of the normal culture, so it's still there to think about that I pay with my phone. They don't even pay with the credit card. This is also Italy, for example. We just learn that we have the card, but we don't know what to do with that. Now we are starting to buy something. But this is also really to face which kind of culture you are facing and which kind of technology you have in your region. So UK, of course, is with USA probably one of the best.
Well, I think it's Amazon Go. I've got this idea where you just use Amazon Prime.
Exactly, yeah.
And it kind of knows that you're there, and there's beacons, I think it is. But I think that's still a concept in Seattle. But there are people starting to sort of to play around with it. Maybe there's something with loyalty. I don't know, with loyalty cards. Do you think you have anything like that, Alice?
Yeah, absolutely. I think cash for us at the moment is just annoying. It's just expensive. People have to stay 20 minutes later after work to cash up. We have to do bank runs, all the rest of it. So if there's another thing as well, which is that we have it's about our store's about 500 square foot on ground floor and then about 350 below. But if I could free up space in that store for, you know, more artists to come in or to do even bigger workshops in this, you know, corner of the room, I think this idea of having this great big till where someone is always standing and you're always sort of, you know, I'm always moaning at them like, don't just stand behind the till, and they're like, but then what happens if, you know, so you just go round and round. But we're just about to do a pop-up at Stylist Live, and I was looking at it, I was like, oh my God, I've only got 5.5 meters by 2 or whatever, and how am I going to put any kind of, you know, sort of till point in? So then you're kind of looking at Isettles and how you move around with them, and actually just the more you know, store flow you can create where people are just having more human kind of conversations and genuine connections as opposed to this kind of separation. I think it's probably a really good thing. I mean, obviously it terrifies me because I find the whole even contactless, just I'm spending too much without even thinking about it. But yeah, and loyalty is obviously really key. I mean, we've been really, really lucky in the store in that people come in, and I think because the idea resonates with them, I actually see a few people, we've got a couple of customers who've turned into brand ambassadors without us even asking them to do that. So they bring in relatives who are visiting London, friends, and they kind of come in, and I hear them just talk this whole spiel about We Built the City and about, you know, what it is, and it's all artists, and it's London, it's souvenirs, and if there's any way that I can enhance that, absolutely, I'd look to do that, so.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I think that's about it. For us lot. Has anybody got any questions they'd like to ask the panel? Don't be shy.
You spoke about the experiential economy and how things have moved from like transactional. Now we're introducing experiences, and you mentioned Lululemon. I was reading about the transformational economy, so moving from experiential to transformational, how does it better me? How am I being changed by this experience? And investing in things that make me a better person. How do you think retail can pick up on that trend, particularly online as well, considering that something transformational is generally experience?
And who would that be for?
For the panel.
Anyone?
I mean, I kind of referenced it earlier about every young person, that's the wrong term, isn't it? But we had a work experience person who came into our office recently. She was 17 and she was so switched on, and apparently they don't watch TV, her generation. They just watch YouTube videos, and they love cosmetics brands, but they focus on cruelty-free. They love the Body Shop, has come back round. They love Lush, yeah, and anything that kind of makes them feel like they're, and obviously I'm generalising, but it does seem to me that is the way that the world is going, and all of these influencers and Instagrammers, you know, juice bars, detox kitchen, athleticism, you know, it is going that way. And I think all of the consumers are just much more educated about where they're getting their product from, that consumer journey. And, you know, even for people who are older now, but, you know, that means that we wake up to it too, doesn't it? So I do think it's going to just keep going that way. Everything's going to get greener, everything's going to be more sustainable, and hopefully the world will get a slightly better place, but that's a little bit twee, but I do think that it's a nice thing to happen, but obviously, again, it's generalising about the UK, and those are the UK consumers that I'm coming across that are younger, and obviously I'm not sure about what's happening in the rest of the world.
Anybody else?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, actually, and it is certainly a massive trend that we're seeing, particularly amongst the younger consumers, in that it's all about the sort of betterment of them and to give back a lot more than probably consumers, you know, my age certainly cared that much about. And that's not to make us sound hugely materialistic, although we probably slightly are compared to the sort of 20-year-old of today. Some retailers I think are moving in a very interesting direction. H&M is probably a really good one currently who are doing their recycling of fashion in store, and particularly for a store that is quite a fast fashion chain, not a Primark example, but it's still, they still bring out fashion quite regularly. And they're now allowing consumers to bring clothes back into store. That's either being completely recycled and remade into other clothing, or it's being distributed back to countries that, don't have the same level of fashion availability that we have within the UK. Some other really good examples, I think Patagonia, who did this Don't Buy This Jacket campaign, a really interesting creative concept to go out with when you're a retailer and you need to make money through selling stuff. I always thought Don't Buy This Jacket was probably counterintuitive to getting people to spend money, but they really tapped into that youth real desire of, actually, I don't need to spend £100 on a new jacket. I could just get this one repaired for like £25, and you take it in and Patagonia redo the zipper, or they fix a pocket that's broken. So some brands are doing it incredibly well. I think it is a very small niche of brands at the moment, I do have to say, but the more power that the younger consumer puts behind that, and the real push towards sustainability, and that's probably an area where people like Westfield can do more. We provide, I think it's 75% of our water through our CCHP plants at Westfield Stratford City. 25% of our electricity comes from that. We use brown water. All those sort of things are becoming so much more important for consumers. And brands, retailers, shopping centre developers, landlords need to understand that this is actually, a point of choice for consumers now. And if we don't deliver to that, consumers have so much other choice to go elsewhere.
Important. Anybody, any other questions?
Hello, I have a question for Mif. You were talking about retailers are using data or thinking about using data. Why do you think retailers are not there yet?
Again, very good question. I think retailers probably aren't there yet because they have been very much focused on the sort of physical experience and, creating and delivering what they need to within a physical environment. It is very difficult to get people to give you information, simply because I think we've become slightly cynical about, how much, and forgive my language, but how much shit we get emailed on a daily basis. I mean, I spend half my day unsubscribing from emails I never even knew I subscribed to. In fact, I don't think I did. So consumers are now becoming incredibly cynical, and they don't want to give their data out. I don't want to get a receipt via an email. Thanks, just print me a paper receipt and I'll throw it out and recycle it. I'm perfectly happy doing that. So retailers are now being very, I think, facing a real uphill battle to give people a reason to give them that information. And it's very much a catch-up. And I think retailers, and I would put Westfield in that bucket as well, I think we've been a little bit lazy. And we've kind of thought everything will be fine, and we don't need to worry about Amazon. And suddenly Amazon take 50% of retail sales in the US.
Can I ask you another question on this, like Facebook, for example? Do you have Facebook? Westfield does Facebook. Do you have Facebook? Or?
I'm very disappointed that you don't follow Westfield.
I don't.
Perhaps you could leave and go and join. I'm just kidding. I am slightly hurt, however.
The advertising industry, I think they're more developed. They are ahead. You're on Facebook and you get all these advertisements there. Why physical retailers, which also have online retailers, why they can, obviously is, a lot of information that maybe marketers don't want to give. But I mean, I think if you have Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, there is a lot of data. I think the retail industry is not hiring people like with degrees and understanding like the strategic side of having Twitter or the social media.
I totally agree, and we do actually have Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, so perhaps you could do all of those when you leave here tonight. I completely agree that, and my advice to anyone who's in school or university now is, and I'm not saying you should all change your courses by any stretch of the imagination, but getting people with digital and technical experience, and I'm pretty sure Sam probably has a similar experience as well as Alice, is incredibly difficult. It is so hard to find people who actually truly know how to manage Facebook and talk to consumers on Twitter. I mean, you wouldn't have thought you could go wrong with 140 characters, but trust me, you can. So being able to communicate with the consumers of today through those channels is something which is crucially important, and very few of us do it well.
Okay, I think that's about it. Well, thank you very much, everybody. It's been really entertaining and great. So I think there's drinks, so stay for a bit longer and network with the panel. Thank you.
Yeah.